The goal for me have always been to be top 2.
This time, I think it's safe to say that our goal should be to be the number 1 already in Spring Split.
The top laner I look forward to face is Odone and Wonderman. I think they are insanely strong in lane and they understand how to play around the map really well.
I've been with them for so long, since Challenger Series. We have won both European splits together.
My ultimate goal is, of course, to win Worlds. Nothing is impossible, so...
Last season we went to the final and we can do that again for sure, so that is our goal.
Either way, the groups really don't matter. I think we should just try to win every game.
Hello and welcome to day 1 of the 2017 EU LCS Spring Split. We're coming to you live from Berlin, Germany, as we launch another year of the best League of Legends Europe has to offer. Good evening, everyone. I'm EpicSkillshot, joined here at the first analyst desk of the year by Mitch Kreppel-Voorspoels and one of my favorite Welshmen, Andrew VODS Day. Welcome, gentlemen, and welcome back to the a little bit revamped studio.
Yes, I'm very happy to be back. We have brand new teams, we have a brand new format, and we have a brand new desk. So I'm excited to kick off the year.
Yeah, he said it all. I concur.
Not too much to add there. Well, then let's continue. This year, the EU LCS has taken on a brand new format. As said, 2 groups, best of 3s, and all on a single stream. Let's take a closer look.
Hello, esports fans. We here at the EU LCS are changing our format for 2017. How, you ask? Let's break it down. We're switching to best of 3s, which will be broadcast on a single stream. The 10 teams are split into 2 groups, determined by a group draft. The group draft took place before the spring split, and it worked like this. Since G2 and H2K gained the highest amount of championship points last year, they are seeds 1 and 2 respectively. Teams are drafted into groups by a snake draft, which means each team will pick another team to go in their opposing groups rather than their own. Think Nemesis draft, but for the LCS. Here are the results. Group A, G2 Esports, Fnatic, Misfits, Giants Gaming, and Roccat. And Group B, H2K, Splice, will retain the same format as previous EU LCS splits. 6 teams will qualify. Teams will be seeded by performance in their group. In 2017, it will be the bottom 2 EULCS teams that are sent to the relegation tournament. The top 2 performing teams from the Challenger Series will join them in a Swiss-style tournament bracket to determine who moves up and who moves down. And that's it for our changes in 2017. For more information, head to eu.lolesports.com and we'll see you on the Rift.
Well, fantastic breakdown there, and the takeaway is that there just has been a lot of changes. Again, some of these teams have now gone through best of ones and best of threes and now into best of threes. How do you think that's going to influence the league and the teams?
I'm just really happy the combination of the 10 ban system as well as the introduction of best of threes. I think it's really going to create a lot of diverse champ selects overall, especially if you consider like a stronger team versus a slightly weaker team already 1-0 up. That leaves you with so much room for experimentation, especially in that second ban phase. We'll get more to that later when the casters truly explain the concept, but it definitely makes me excited for what we could see.
Yeah, and speaking of what we could see, it's the introduction of the added 10-man rosters that we're now adding to the European LCS. We see it in the likes of Fnatic. We also see it in teams like Vitality, who have that rotating jungler. There are a lot of variations that can now come into the Rift, and I'm excited to see what these different teams can bring out.
Definitely, we'll see how they evolve across the split, and we'll also be taking to the Rift on patches 7.1. And if you visit youtube.com/LoleEsports, you can also see which champions Various thinks will be interesting in the new 10-ban meta. And something else is that Teemo is disabled, so we definitely won't be seeing him. It will be very interesting to see those picks, all the power picks. A lot of those might be off the table, and it'd be interesting to see what strategy teams go for. Banning out a certain role, banning so that they can craft a certain team comp. It's all up to be decided.
Yeah, currently it looks like you ban the OPs in the first 6 bans, and then you take a couple of strong picks, and then you ban out the counters in the second ban phase. That is truly what's going to make it so interesting, especially on that red side. Having the first pick after the ban phase, having the ability to counter ban after your last pick in the first phase. I mean, so many interesting possibilities.
And something that we were discussing earlier in the week, Crepo, was about how teams have only just scratched the surface of what's even possible with this pick and ban phase. So I'm really excited to see how it evolves throughout the season.
We will, and let's take a look at what is in store this week as we kick off week 1. Today we will have OG taking on H2K, followed by our match of the week, a best of 3 between G2 and Fnatic. And tomorrow, the EULCS newcomers Misfits will face off against Giants. What matchup do you guys have your eye on?
Personally, I'm actually really excited to see Unicorns of Love versus Vitality. I think that the Unicorns have had a strong showing, especially coming into the end of last year, and even though they've had a couple of roster shifts, I think expectations of them are still pretty high, whereas Vitality on paper look very promising, but they've looked very promising in the past, so we'll have to see if they can meet these expectations that some people have put on them.
Yeah, UOL and Vitality for you. Which team do you have your eye on, Crepo?
I'll be looking just at H2K Splice because I'm casting with this new guy called Dracos.
Who's that?
Yeah, Sifa's gone, Dracos is here all of a sudden, so that should be fun. I like to see what happens just with some of these teams. I want to see them all play, but I want to see them all play more than once. I really want to see where predictions meet judgment somewhere in week 3, so we'll have to be patient.
We will, but for now, we're going to get right into our first match of the spring split in Group B by taking a look at the lineups. On the blue side, representing Origin, we have in the top lane Sartorius, in the jungle Wisdom, Nehun in the mid lane, Tabs at AD carry, at support Hiva, and Coach Leduc. Obviously, that roster is completely changed to what we saw in summer 2016. Is it better or is it worse?
It's nice that you asked the question. It is worse. It is much, much worse. Origin did not retain a single player. They lost the likes of Amazing and SOAS. Honestly, they've gathered maybe B-tier players, C-tier players, players that were formerly in Challenger, players that have tried and failed already. It doesn't look good for them. I would almost go as far to say that they're almost guaranteed to be in the relegation tournament, and I would not be surprised if they were replaced by either Schalke or PSG in summer.
I really want to echo that sentiment. This is an entire Challenger roster. They've all been playing in Challenger last split, and we've seen a lot of these guys playing for a long time, yet they haven't really achieved very much. So we'll have to see how well they stand against H2K. I definitely appreciate your honesty and harshness here, but then the question, there have been teams in the past that were Challenger players and a lot of Challenger players that hadn't seen the LCS before. We have, of course, the success story of Splice last year. So why can it not work for Origin?
I mean, it definitely anything can work,
yes,
right? But that's why they're called like upset stories and underdog stories, is because everybody had a reasonable expectation for them to do not good, like to honestly play very poorly.
Yes.
That's what happens. Like, any critic out there does not expect much from Origin in this current fashion. The only thing that speaks well for Origin for me is that for the first time in a long period of time, they put infrastructure first. They've recruited Leduc or Ducky previously as their coach first, and then they started filling their players. But you can definitely see that these are players that went to Origin because, honestly, I don't think they got on the block for other teams in the LCS.
Well, we'll see what they can do. They have a big test up ahead. Their first opponents, and on the red side of the rift, are H2K, with in the top lane Odoamne, in the jungle Jankos, mid lane Febivin, at AD carry Nuclear, at support Che, and coach Prowley. Jankos, Odoamne, and Prowley were on that roster beforehand as well. Febivin has returned, and they have a brand new bottom lane. What are we expecting from this H2K?
Well, this is the big question mark, because Febivin, we're wondering how well he's going to fit into the new H2K roster, because we have to remember that this guy is filling in for Ryu.
Yep.
H2K needed to find someone who would be able to fulfill the role that, and honestly, towards the end of the year, Ryu was doing a fantastic job, especially his performance at Worlds. And we're yet to see very much from Febivin. Right now, we're still wondering whether or not he can get back to that 2015 Febivin that we saw, or whether we're going to see more of that mediocre Fnatic Febivin that we saw throughout the 2016 season.
Yeah, as we see the teams there still setting up on stage and tweaking a couple of things. It is obviously their first time back on stage. It's been a while. Oops, did I have to plug in my mouse? Yes, it's necessary. I do want to jump on that point and hear your thoughts on the whole Febivin redemption story. You want to see him back in his 2015 form, maybe 2015 MSI form. Is that going to be the key to this entire roster?
I mean, everybody wants to see that, and even Febivin himself, he's come out with the whole self-improvement mantra and etc. But he seems very hungry to improve. He should be able to thrive in the H2K organization because they have Prowley, but they also have a wealth of support staff that they're introducing there. So they should be able to kind of help him build. They have people managing skills there alongside Prowley. So in that sense, I'm excited for what H2K could do. It is a big question mark, but as opposed to Origin, where they're having these 5 new players, right? You saw that in a Febivin who has been struggling, but you don't put the onus to lead on him. He can just follow Odoamne and Jankos, who already have a working system, and then their bot lane should be able to kind of thrive on their own as well, especially with the communication being all in Korean, at least out of the game for them.
Exactly that, Crepo. H2K have done a little bit of the opposite of what we see from Origin, where they already have this solid lineup to build the back of. You have Jankos, you have Odo, who have been so consistent throughout last year, and they can grow the talent, nurture it into what could be an incredibly strong H2K.
That's always a lot of like could-be's and
Exactly.
could-haves. H2K could also fail, but but our expectation is that they do well. If you look at their bot lane, for people that are unfamiliar, Nuclear and Shade, 2 Korean players, 2 former LCK players. One came from Zbenu, and if you know Zbenu, they won 3 series, I think, over 2 splits.
Yep.
1 in 17 and then 2 in 16 in the following split, and then they made their exit. But Nuclear was a decent to good AD carry on a bad team, pairing with Shay, who was always serviceable. He never really stood out on Jin Air, but he was, I think, acceptable. And if you look at Europe right now, the bot lanes don't look that strong. It's very hard to make a tier list of all the bot lanes and be like, damn, these top 3 guys, like they're gonna kick some ass. Like, it's really hard to make that statement. So I think H2K's bot lane should survive, and then we can really focus on the top side of the map.
And that is the most important thing for them as well. Not going to straight predictions, but in this OG versus H2K matchup, I think we all agree that H2K is the favorite. So where is there an in for OG, or where is there maybe a part where H2K can falter, seeing how it is the first game of the split?
I'm excited to see how it evolves in the draft, depending on how quickly teams have prepared, because this is actually a very big change, and only recently have teams actually started to prepare for it. So how quickly they've been able to actually come up with solid strategies, I think is going to be a big determining factor in how this best of 3 plays out.
It could also be a matter of complacency. If you just came off the back of Worlds in like an Odoamne and a Jankos, H2K only started scrimming January 6th is what I believe they put out. So they had a very late start. The Origin players, they must be hungry. A lot of them are viewed as B-tier players, and honestly, not many people have high hopes. That could really drive the motivation of some of these players to over-prep, go the extra mile to really show up the first day, and that could happen, and that would be a pleasant upset. I don't think it's likely, but you ask for a way in. I think that's it for
sure.
Origin.
And it is a best of 3, so there can always be that odd game out where it doesn't go well. The players are just about getting into the lobby, so we'll be right there. And if we look at what we expect of H2K, that Jankos Odoamne train will be going hard, but wouldn't it be better for them to say, no, we're going to try and help the bottom lane out to see how that goes in this first game of the split?
I mean, the current metagame is still the bot lane 5-man fiesta.
Yes.
Where everybody teleports down, the jungler comes down, and everybody sieges that or dives that first turret for the demolition gold. However, that comes from a strong top lane anyways. If you have presence top lane, you can leverage that advantage and swing into the bot lane. It is a whole macro game altogether, and I think H2K had those patterns figured out already. So they could just do that, and it must be pleasant for Nuclear and Shay. If you're laning pretty steady even, suddenly your mid laner teleports down, your top laner is walking down, and your jungler shows up. I think that could be the way for H2K.
Yeah, could very well be.
All right, well, we will see what happens. The players are now almost ready for picks and bans, so let's hand it over to the caster desk for game 1 of this best of 3